Today we are going to continue with FOSS PC application. So today we are going to do another very important topic, that is database management system using base. Okay. Anyway, you have the database management system as a full subject in your semester 2, but in semester 1 you have this subject called in FOSS PC application you have a database management system called base, which is personal database management system. Unlike the other topics, there's a theory behind databases, so without explaining that we can't straight away go and start base, but we are going to discuss these things in great detail in your semester 2 subject. But today I'm going to do a very quick overview of that. So this topic can be a really good introduction to your database subject as well, right, which you have it in your semester 2. Okay, right. So therefore predominantly I will be talking about theory today, though it is FOSS PC, and after the latter part only we will be moving to the practical usages. Okay, practical usage in the sense using base. Right, I will be talking a lot of things, but I will be doing it very fast because we are going to discuss those things in a more systematic manner when it comes to semester 2. Okay, right. So what is a database? So when it comes to software, so there are different components. Okay, so we have that application. We have the application. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Right. So when it comes to software, so we have the application logic or your program part. Of course, it involves UI, business logic, and behind you have, of course, the users are there. Behind you have a database because you have to save. If it is a bill, so they have to save it, right? If it is a financial transaction in bank, you have to save it, otherwise it's lost. So therefore now we have every software. I wouldn't say every software, most of the softwares, behind the software there's a database. Okay, so therefore database are important part of the software. Okay, right. So now let's discuss a little bit of how to, in general, how to manage data or persist data. Okay, right. So when it comes to managing persisting data, early days people use manual approach. Manual, so that is manual files, right? Manual files and human processing. Now even today, if you go to a government department or something, land registry or government hospital, right, police station, you will see files, manual files. Okay, so because they are living in the past, so they still heavily use physical files to store their information, their data. But now, not now, about 10, 20, 30 years back, people moved away from manual data storage, databases to, or data storage to the computer file base. Computer file. This is not still database. It's now the file is in the computer. File is in the computer. It can be a Word file, Excel file, or any text file. Okay, so your file is, rather than you keep it in physical form, physical file, files, folders, etc., written by hand. Now then people move to a computer files. So computer files had a lot of advantage because it's soft, you need less storage. It's very easy to transfer it. You can email, you can transfer it through internet, fast transmission, and very easy to take backups, restore, etc. when it comes to files. Of course, files are readily available for processing by the computer. But still, people find there are some drawbacks. There are better ways of doing that. So the third approach is the database. Right? This third approach is called the database approach. So when it comes to file approach, computer file approach, the application looks something like this. So we have different applications and they have their own files, of course computer files. And so on different applications they have their own files. Say this is leave management, say this is payroll, right? Maybe attendance management, another one. They have their own files, right? Accounting set of files, order processing another set of files, inventory another set of files. So there were so many disadvantages when it comes to use of computer files. So many. One disadvantage was for these files, they are for different applications, we have different files. Okay. So therefore now duplication of data, right? Duplicate. So we could use the word redundancy in IT. Data redundancy, because same data is here and there. You have to transfer from one application, one files to another, one application to another application. And also there were no standard formats, no standard format for files. So therefore one file, this file is specifically designed for this application. It may not be suitable for the other application because it is expecting different format. So no standard format. Right? Data is redundant, duplicate. Right? And also since files are here and there, so this application needs its own file, right? So no control. Okay, less control and security. So all those are big disadvantages. So then came the concept called databases, right? So the concept called databases. So in databases, we have central location to keep the data, central database. And all the applications are now connecting to that database, all or most of the applications. Your payroll system, leave management system, right? Attendance management. So all are connected to one database. Now we have common data repository. Now all of a sudden most of the issues that we had with file management, computer file based systems are no longer there. Now we have central repository. So therefore every application is referring to the same data. So therefore less redundancy. We can't say no redundancy, but definitely less redundancy. Right? And also standard formats. There's a theory behind databases, the table, record, fields, primary key, foreign key, right? Whether you are using MySQL or Oracle or Microsoft SQL, those standard formats are there. There's a theory behind that, right? Standard formats for saving data. We call it table now. And another big advantage is when you have it everything in the central location, it's central or easy control and security. And also they developed something called SQL, structured query language, which is standard. right? Every database vendor or most of the database vendors support, which is good, right? Because once you learn SQL, it doesn't matter whether you are working with Oracle or MySQL or MS SQL, you can query your data, you can communicate with your database, right? Not only standard file formats, now we have standard query format, structured query language, right? All those advantages are there when you move from computer file based system to a database system. Okay, so that is a big advantage. So therefore, if you take modern software, modern computer programs, right, 99.9999, or I would say 100%, they use databases, right? So they don't use files. Of course, they can use files for some primitive things like logging, etc. But your data will be predominantly saved in database. Okay, database, right? So then someone will ask, what is the difference between file and database? Of course, database is a software which create a more abstract or high level structure for the software to interact, right? So therefore it's easier for the programmers to communicate with your database, right? Do a insert, update, delete, retrieve, etc. You are not exposed to the files, rather you are exposed to much high level concepts like tables, relationships, etc. And of course, since you have the SQL language, it's very easy to communicate with your database, not like reading a file, right? Accessing the record, closing the files, etc. Okay, so that is why now we are moved from computer file applications to the database applications. Okay, right. So now from this point onwards, we are going to discuss about databases, right? So you can't think of a software without a database, right? Whether it's an inventory management system or order processing or whatever, even student marks, student management system, there's a database. Okay, right. So databases, so sometimes we call it database management systems if you take the entire software. So as I told you, there was evolution from manual file based systems to the computer file based system to now we have the database. So within the databases also there was a evolution. First they tried out something called hierarchical databases. Then they tried out something called network databases. Then they came up with the idea of, so when I say so computer engineers, okay, then they came up with the idea of relational databases. And now we have even object databases, right? Hierarchical, network, relational, and object database. Of course, there are some in between things like object relational. Okay, right. So let's take one by one. So when it comes to hierarchical, that is the first type of databases they tried out in 1970s, right? Especially in 1970s when the database technology was evolving. So they went to the reality, right? If you take the government organization or even some business organization, even a school like your schools, so they have height hierarchical structures, right? Hierarchical structures. Say, let's take a school as example. You have the sections. Of course, you have the principal. He is the boss. He is the top. Then you have the section heads. If it's a big school, then you have the different grades. Sometimes you have the head teacher for that particular grade also. In some schools, say grade 10 coordinator or the head teacher, and grade 11, etc. Then of course the class teacher or the class, say 12A, etc. Now it's a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy, right? So they thought, why don't we use the same concept for designing our databases, and now we call it hierarchical databases. Okay. Hierarchical database management system, something like that. So these are called entities, concepts that we are interested, like payment, order, customer. But they, in hierarchical databases, you can have only one parent. There you can't create relationship like that. Then it is not a hierarchical database. Okay. So that is the first type of database they tried out, and they pretty soon they found that yes, we have very good control, which is good, but it is very rigid, right? Lack of flexibility. It's not flexible. No, it's not flexible approach, because there are very tight hierarchical structure that it has enforced. Something like your school, right? If you are in 7D or if you are in 12A, say there's another 12B class, you can't go and sit in the 12B. You are supposed to be in the 12A. If you want to transfer to 12B, there you have to follow sometimes you have to go to the principal and come back. So that is what is meaning by tight control. Tight control, but control is good, but flexibility you lose. Yeah, you lose your flexibility. Okay, it's not like a tuition class, right? Say you are in a tuition class, so if this is not good enough for you, from next month you can go and sit in the other class, because they are not hierarchical. They have a lot of flexibility, right? So same thing, right? So once you go for the hierarchical databases where these entities or tables are only connected hierarchical manner, no this kind of a connections, no, then we lose a lot of our flexibility. So that is why pretty soon people found that no, this is not the way to go. So then they tried out the other extreme freedom, and now we call it network databases. So this has nothing to do with the computer networks. So network database means, now earlier tightly hierarchical. Then they thought, why don't we just connect these tables together at will, without restricting much. If there's a need, why don't we connect these two together? Right? So we can say, if there's a need, we will connect. Okay, there's no hard and fast restrictions. So that is called network databases. Extremely flexible, because it's the opposite direction, opposite extreme. But unfortunately, when you just connect tables at your will, then unfortunately you lose your control. Lack of control, because there's no proper theory or any idea behind what to connect, what not to connect, or what is the best way to connect. So therefore, thirdly, computer engineers, software developers settle with this third approach. We call it relational databases. Right? Relational. It is not as tightly controlled as hierarchical, and it is not as uh, loosely controlled as network databases. It's sort of in between, right? So it has good compromisation of control and freedom, right? Control and freedom. good amount, right? Good amount, reasonable amount of control, at the same time reasonable amount of freedom. And also these relational databases were built based on something known as relational theory. It is something related to logic, but not really logic as well. Because logic, it's all about final result, true or false. But in relational theory, it's all about the data. Right? What kind of data are we going to get as A intersection B, as B minus A, as A union B, etc. Okay? So it has better control and freedom, and also it has a theoretical background. Theory. So there's a theory behind the relational, so we call it relational theory, which we will be discussing in your semester 2, which is good. If you are building something based on a solid theory, you have better chance of reliability, etc. Okay, right. So that is third approach. Now, of course, if you take the modern databases, I would say more than 90% of these databases are relational databases. More than 90%. Okay. Now, no longer we use network or hierarchical databases. It's just a history. Okay. Right. So then what about the other 10%? There are some new trends happening. Right. Object databases. There's something called XML based databases or NoSQL databases. So likewise, new things are emerging, partially because we are now heavily doing object oriented programming. So therefore, it is always good if your database is also based on the object oriented concepts. Relational databases are good, but they are not 100% compatible with object oriented concepts like polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction, etc. So therefore now computer engineers have come up with what is known as object database, supporting object oriented concepts like inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, etc. Okay, but still object databases are emerging, evolving, therefore not much use. So therefore still I would say 90% of the time relational databases are used, and gradually yes, we will be getting more and more object oriented features. Okay, right. Then of course these XML databases are mostly because now we are heavily using semi-structured data or unstructured data. The traditional databases are good when it comes to structured data like student information, employee information, order, right, payment, highly structured, right, even marks for an exam. Okay, but still relational databases are the number one because they fit for our purposes most of the time still, because we are not heavily doing object oriented programming, right? Of course we are doing fair amount of object oriented programming, but unfortunately still the object oriented databases are not matured, so it will take a little bit of more time for maturity. Okay, right. So therefore from this point onwards, we will, when I say database, I mean relational database, and of course base is a relational database management system. Okay, that's what we are going to discuss, library of base. Right, so when it comes to understanding your database, I told you I'm going to do a lot of theory today, which is a gentle introduction to your semester 2 database as well, because without knowing the theory, if you just start working with databases, tables, you are just walking, right, in the dark, right? So no point, right? So therefore this is the most important part, right? So when it comes to databases, so database management systems, we can think of it as a 3-tier architecture. Okay, 3-tier architecture, which is proposed by American National Standard Institution or ANSI, and we call it ANSI Spark 3T architecture. So what is ANSI Spark 3T architecture? So we can look at the database as 3 layers. Just like you can look at the computer as a physical layer, right? Software or the hardware, firmware, software. Of course, the software you can subdivide into system software and application software, and of course finally the liveware or the users. That is a layered architecture to better understand the computer. Now database is a software. Now there's a layered architecture to better understand the DBMS as well. So we can look at a database as 3 layers. What are those? Internal or user tier, end user tier, right? So that is tier number 1. So the concepts like form, reports, those are part and parcel of the first tier, external or end user tier. So that is the user's point of view of the system. How the users look at your system. How are they going to interact with your system? Right? So what are the key concepts related to external tier? Sorry, this is not internal, external, okay? Sorry, external tier, okay? Or user tier or end user tier. So when it comes to external or end user tier, the main concepts are forms, reports, because for the end users they need forms to enter data, they need some reports and some other softwares to generate some output. Okay, so that is called external or the user tier. Okay, external or the user tier. So of course the software developers develop these things, forms, reports, etc. as part of the software. Then we have the conceptual or logical tier. That is where your tables or relations and relationships are. Right? Relations and relationships are under conceptual or logical tier. So this is the most important tier for software developers, architects, etc. They are designing and developing the system. So they are heavily working on this conceptual tier, the relation or the tables and relationships. So we frequently say student table, marks table, exam table, etc. So there's a third tier also. So that is called internal or physical tier. So this involves few things: the data files and some index files. Right. So you will be discussing what are the data files, what are the index files when you are in semester 3. You have subject called data management system. Okay, so this semester 2 you have the database management system or database subject. Semester 3 you have the DMS, data management system. There you will be learning, actually it's basically the same part 2 of the DBMS. You will learn in these things, right? How to create index files, optimize those, etc. But we are more interested here the conceptual or the logical tier, where you have the tables and relationships, okay, right? So now before moving to base, which is a database management system, it's a very primitive database management system. We want to understand in detail what are these concepts, especially the logical or the tier and little bit of this tier. We are not interested about the internal tier here because it is advanced topic for your semester 3. Okay, හැමදේම එකපාර කරන්න බෑනේ. Right, so before moving to each and every tier in detail, let's categorize our databases also. Right, let's categorize the database. So this is just one popular classification of databases, that is personal databases, enterprise databases. Right. So what is personal database? Personal database means database used personally, individually. Right? Personal database. Enterprise database means, now for personal database usually only one user can access at a time, because that is good enough. Right? That is good enough. And the database system is not going to be very complicated because we are not going to support multiple or concurrent access. So then we have the enterprise level databases. Okay, so that is where, or sometimes we can call it work group databases as well. That is big database where everyone or enterprise wise, right, organizational wise, all these people are connecting to that. And here, since it is used individually, no concurrency support. Right, no concurrency support. Concurrency means multiple users access the database at the same time. But when it comes to enterprise level databases, accounting systems, banking systems, we have to support concurrency. Support for concurrency. Right, so that is the difference. Now what we are going to discuss today is base. That is a personal database. Right, base, MS Access, those are all personal databases. Only one person can use at a time. But if you take something like Oracle, Microsoft SQL, and even MySQL, those are enterprise databases. Right? You can have a lot of things related to your business in one database. Okay, right, now we are going to take one by one the concept, starting with conceptual or logical tier. Okay, because this is, we are not going to discuss much because you know what is a form is, a UI that we can provide to enter data, and what is a report is, these managers need different reports for their management decision making process. Right, so that is how they like to look at the database, as set of forms to insert, set of reports, so that they can get an idea about the current situation. Okay, right, so we'll take a small break because I have been talking a lot. Okay, though it's just a bit more than 35 minutes, I have been talking a lot. So let's take a small break. After the break, we will be discussing about these conceptual or logical tier concepts, especially the relation node tables and relationships, because we have to create those things using base later. Okay, right, so now it's 8:35. Let's start at 8:50, and we will be discussing few more things related to database theory, and then move on to the base database. Okay, right, so we'll continue. Now you must have some idea about what is a database and why we are using database, and also why we are using relational databases and 3-tier architecture. So I'm talking a lot of things. Basically, I'm giving you a very big overview of the entire database subject, okay, that you are going to cover in your semester 2. Okay, right. So then finally I explain you that we can subdivide database into personal database and enterprise databases. Okay, so personal databases individualized data. Usually you don't share your data with others, like most of the your address book and other things in your smartphone also. Okay, right. Now let's look at the relational database related concepts. When it comes to developing a database, usually we have to analyze the data, analysis, and then design, and then develop. Okay, so we are not going to discuss the analysis part. We will straight away analysis part we are going to discuss when we are doing semester 2 database subject, how to analyze and model what is known as ER diagram, like this, right, something like this. But we are not going to discuss that right now because of the time constraint. We are going to discuss how to design a database and develop it. Okay, assume that you have understood the requirement for the data, right? So here I told you that we are more interested about the conceptual view. There are two concepts, main concepts, what is known as relation or tables and relationship. Okay, let's take one by one. Start, right? Relation or tables and relationship. Right. So what is relation? So relations are used to, or relation only we call it table. It's a conceptual thing. That is why we call it relation, conceptual or logicality. Yeah? It represents an entity, right? Persist means save. So in databases we use different words, databases and ICT, right? So rather than duplicate, we say redundancy. So rather than save, we say persist. Okay. So relations persist data, or persist data related to an entity. Entity. තව වචනයක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. හරි අපි ඔයාලට කියන්නේ analysis වල අඳිනවා diagram එක ER diagram කියලා. Entity relationship diagrams. Relations වලට කියන තව නමක් තමයි ඇත්තටම entity කියන්නේ. Entity කියන්නේ අපිට වැදගත් ඕනම දෙයක්. අපිට වැදගත් නම් ඒ concept එක අපි ඒක save කරලා තියා ගන්න ඕන අපි කියන එකට entity එකක් කියලා. හරි? Payment, right? Say take student management system, students, courses, lecturers, payments, those are all things that we are interested. We want to keep track of the student information, we want to keep track of the lecturer information, we want to keep track of the course details, we want to keep track of the any other things like exam results, etc. Okay, right? So they all can be relations or tables. Okay, right? So when it comes to table, we have to give it a name. Each table in a database must have a unique name, right? Payment, order, customer, item, etc. Then now this is how you visualize a table. It's a logic. Okay, in reality your table will be saved as a file, but this is what we are interested. This view is good, better for us, easy to understand, right? So these are called fields or columns or attributes. Student name, student ID, student name, email address, contact number. So those are columns or fields. Then you can have individual records or tuples. Records or tuples. Right. Student ID is 2 Nimal Pereira, nimal@gmail.com, 072 blah blah blah. So that is a record or tuple. So likewise there will be another record. Okay. That is how you visualize the concept called table, because table is not a file, table is a concept. Underneath, yes, it will be a file, and it will be multiple files as well, right? So every table or relation must have a name. Then you can have set of fields or columns, right? Fields or columns. Now again, each and every field or column must have a name, right? Email address, gender, salary. So otherwise we can't figure it out. So every field must have a name. Then they must have a data type. So these data types are somewhat different from the data types we use in programming, but very close. Sometimes we use slightly different words, right? So here also we have the numbers, currency, integer, cha, vacha, boolean, right? Date, time. Each field has a name, each field has a data type. Okay. So additionally, you can have some constraints. Constraints. So constraints means restrictions. For example, someone will say your marks must be between 0 to 100. You can't give any number. You can say that the email address must be having this particular format. So those are called constraints. You can apply constraints to the field level, or else there's another type of constraints which can be applied to the table level as well, right? Right, now we have the name for the table, set of fields, each field has a name, data type and individual constraints. Okay, so then out of these fields, right, out of these fields we have to identify one or combination of fields, one field or combination of fields called primary key. Like primary key, pradhana yatura. Right. So this primary key is used to uniquely identify a record in a table. That is a must. For example, in the university, how do they uniquely identify you? That is why they have given you a unique student number. So when you go to A level, how do they uniquely identify you? You were given an index number which you have to supposed to write in the answer sheets. How do you recognize? How do they recognize you in the bank? Your bank account number. So every account has a unique number. No two accounts have the same number. So we need a concept called primary key. Otherwise, there's no way to uniquely identify a record. Right? Primary key. Right. So those are the concepts that are related to table or relations. Okay. Table must have a name and set of fields. Each field must have a name, data type and constraints. And we have to pick primary key, which must be either one column or combination of multiple columns which uniquely identify a record. Okay. Right. So let's go to the base now. LibreOffice base. So let's create a table. Right, so just go by the default values. Okay, create a new database. Next, yes, just select the default values like register your database, etc., and say finish. They will ask you where to save. I will save it in your code folder. Out I will create a folder base db. Okay. I would say exercise, or let's say employee management. Okay, I will share the database after the class. Okay, right. So now they have created the database, but still it doesn't have any table or relationships. So let's create our first table or relation. So if you go to the table view, there are three things here: create a table in design view, use wizard to create a table, and create a view. Right. So we are not going to discuss about views here. Right. So let's create. Now let's see what is available if you go for the wizards. Of course, I am not going to use wizards. So if you are really new to the database subject, it will give you some predefined tables for you, so that you can at least get a feeling of it, or you can change it and make it your table. Okay. Task database, employee, you can see photo, title, salary, address, date of birth, right? Say if it is a payment, which order you are doing the payment ID, right? Check number, etc. Right. So we are not going to use this one. I just cancel it. We are going to use the create table in design view. Okay. So this is called the design view. You can do it parallelly with me using my base. Okay, right. So now we are going to give it a name. When you save, it will ask you the name, but still we haven't done anything, so let's save it late. Now I'm going to create the individual fields, or the columns, or the attributes. Right. So I will say I'm going to save this as employee. Okay, employee. Okay, so I will give my primary key as employee ID. Okay, let's say employee number. I'm just following a convention. Start with capital. Okay, camel case. Right. So there I will go for tiny integer. So these types are different from your programming types. Here we have more types, and even they can be different from different databases as well. But these are sort of common things we are discussing. Okay, we are not going to use very specific data types. A tiny integer, something like short and byte in your programming. And I want to make this my primary key, because employee number is good candidate for a primary key. So how to make it primary key? Just click on somewhere here in that field and right click and say primary key. Right. So now you can see there's a very small key mark that indicate that it is the primary key. At any time, if you want to remove it, you can just say untick it. Okay. Right. Now let's add few more fields. I'm just adding some fields that usually related to employees. Let's say name. So here I can go for text or vacha. That is good enough. I would say salary. For that, text is not good. I would go for something like decimal. Right. So that is how we create it. Right. So you can keep adding some data or fields. Okay. Then if you want to do some additional validations or constraints, here you can see length. I can change. I can mark whether it's a must have or optional value, right? And decimal places, etc. So those are additional constraints. Okay, right. So here I have only the primary key and two more fields. Right. So now when you save, it will ask for a table name. I will say employee. Right, employee. Right, I'm going to close the window. Now I have a table called employee in our database. Okay. Right. I'm going to create another table now. Let's call it department because employees work for department. Okay. Now I'm going to create it very fast. Design view. Primary key. I will call it department number. Now this unique field is very important. For example, when it comes to your BIT course, every subject has a unique code. Whenever there's a syllabus change also, they just change the code number. Okay. So likewise, it's very important. I will call it department number. Maybe others are not aware of there's something called department number, even the employees, but in the database we need a primary key. Okay. Otherwise, there's no way to uniquely identify a record. Right. Again, I will go for tiny integer and make it as primary key. I will just give few fields. I will say name, text, and location. There can be so many other attributes, but I just add sample attribute. Location. Okay. Right now I have two tables. I will save it as department. Okay. Right. So that is how you work with tables or relations and create primary keys as well. Any questions? Because I am doing it very fast. Just give me 1 minute. Right. So any questions on relations? Now we are moving to the second concept. The second concept is relationship. Once you understand those two concepts, you are done with the basics. And we are only interested about those two because those are the two concepts in the logical low conceptual tier. Right? Relationship. So this is the most trickiest thing, tricky area. Relationship. So when you are giving definitions, make sure you give them in a very precise manner. Right? Very precise manner. Don't give general answers. Okay? Right. So this is the definition of relationship. Relationship is a connection or logical connection between entities. Right? Logical connection or relatedness. Entities or relations. न्याय relations වලට කියන සිංහලෙන් කියනවාද न्यायो relationship කියන්නේ न्यायකම न्यायකම කියන්නේ මේ न्याय අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාව වලට නේද එන හරිනේ logical connection අපි දැන් logical කියලා දානවා මෙතන තියෙන data හන්දා හරි logical connection between relations. Do we have connections between relations? Of course, yes. Right? For example, you are studying for BIT. Now, BIT course and student is related. And course and batch is related. Student and batch is related. You are in the batch 2. Okay? Says take supermarket. So this payment is for this particular bill of this particular order. Order is related to the payment. So likewise, there will be so many relationship between entities or the tables. Okay. So those are called relationships. Logical connection between entities or the tables or relations is called relationship. Okay. So why do you want to model the relationship? Otherwise we can't find out the relatedness. Otherwise we can't find out who are the employees of department 1. In which department this particular employee is working for. Unless they are related, we can't figure it out. Okay. Right. So now you know what is a relationship. So the next question is how to create relationship. How? Right. The method පොඩ්ඩක් databases කරපුවා ඇතිනේ නේද? A level ICT කරපුවා ඇති. O level ICT වල අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම table එකක් හදන විදිය relationship එකක් හදන විදිය කියනවා පොඩ්ඩ. Can someone tell me what is a relationship? Sorry, you know what is a relationship? How to create relationship? කොහොමද database වල relationship හදන්නේ? දැන් මේකට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න බැන්න කාටවත් ගිහිලා කියන්න එපා මම databases දන්නවා කියලා. හැබැයි දන්නවා නෙමෙයි දන්නවා කියලා හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා. How do we create relationships? Just simple answer you can give. එක වචනයක් කියවන වැඩේ හරි. How do we create relationships? Anyone? හැබැයි මේකට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න බැරි කට්ටිය කවදාවත් ගිහිලා කියන්න එපා අපි databases කරලා ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවා කියලා. හරි? ගහලා එලවයි. Now say you are developing a software. You have to design a database. Now how are you going to create relationship between tables? Relationship නැතු table හදලා ඉවරලා සමහර final year project එක කරන student ලා ඉන්නවා relationship එකක් හදාගන්න තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි? table තියෙනවා relationship නැහැ. final year ගිහිල්ලා. Right. So how to create relationship? Very simple answer by using foreign keys. Primary key වලට කියන්නේ PK කියලා foreign keys වලට කියන්නේ foreign key FK කියලා කෙටි. How to create relationships? By using foreign keys. As simple as that. Right? ඔච්චරයි. කොහොමද for relationship හදන්නේ? Foreign keys පාවිච්චි කරලා. ඊට පස්සේ නම් දැනගන්න ඕනේ මොකද්ද මේ foreign key එකක් කියන්නේ කියලා. ඒක කතාව ඉවරයි. Right? What is a foreign key? Anyone want to give it a try? Those who have done a bit of databases. What is a foreign key? What is a primary key? A field in a table which is used to uniquely identify a record in that table is called primary key. Likewise, you must have a very precise answer for what is a foreign key. Right. So the foreign key is a field in a table, right? Field in a table which is mapped to the primary key of the related table. That's it. So then we say that it's a foreign key. මේ සරල දේවල් හරියට තේරුම් ගන්න එකපාරක්. Foreign key is a field in a table which is mapped to create a relationship. Foreign keys තියෙන එකම හේතුව relationship හදන්න. relationship එක පෙන්වන්න. හරි? Now when it comes to relationships, there are three major type of relationships. Relationship වර්ග තුනක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කී දෙනෙක් එක්ක relate වෙනවද කියන එක අනුව තමයි අපි තීරණය කරන්නේ. හරි? මොනවාද relationship වර්ග තුන? one to one, one to many and many to many. ඔය තුන විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. database එකේ වෙන කිසිම relationship වර්ගයක් එන්නේ නැහැ. වට කියන්නේ cardinality නැත්නම් multiplicity කියලා. multiplicity of relationship. So there are three possibilities: one to one, one to many, many to many. Those are three possibilities. Okay, between relationship, between tables, these three type of relationship may occur. Right? Every relationship must be either one to one, or one to many, or many to many. So now you must know how to create each of these type of relation, and of course now you know that how to create a relationship by using foreign keys. What is a foreign key? A field in a table which is mapped to the primary key of the related table. Right, so let's take the easiest one first. One to many. So these are the most widely found relationship in real world. ලෝකෙ වැඩිපුරම අපිට හම්බෙන්නේ one to many. හරි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ finally database එක design එකක් බැලුවොත් එම් වෙන්නේ 90%ම තියෙන one to many relationship කියලා. reality එකේ අපිට වැඩිම හම්බෙන්නේ මේවා තමයි. Right? Order can have many items. Right? Student may register for many courses. Okay. Exam has many subjects, so therefore most of the time it is one to many. Okay. Right. How to create one to many relationship? How? It's very easy. It's very easy. Add the foreign key to the many side. Okay. That's it. What is a foreign key? Column in a table which is mapped to the primary key of the related table. So now you have to create a column or new field into the many side if it is one to many and map it to the primary key of the one side. Okay, that's it. One to many relationship. So that is why I created the employee and department. So my idea was employee can work only one department at a time, but department can obviously have many employees. You පෙන්නන්නේ එක employee කෙනෙක් එක department එකක විතර වැඩ කරන්නේ. හැබැයි එක department එක many employees ලා ඉන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. සාමාන්‍ය employee කෙනෙක් department එකකට දාන්න එකපාර. හරි. එක්කෝ HR department එක, එක්කෝ finance department එක, එක්කෝ admin department එක, එක්කෝ production department එක නේ. අපි කියන්නේ නේ HR එකේ finance එකේ දෙකේම ඉන්නවා කියලා. Right. So now we have one to many relationship. Employee can work for one department, department can have many employees. Right? අපි ඔක පෙන්නන්නේ one to many කියන එක definition එක දෙන්නේ මෙහෙමයි. Say we have A and B, two tables or relations or entities. We say that A to B is many to one or B to A is one to many if one instance of A is related with one instance of B and one instance of B is related with many instances of A. ඔන්න ඔය හරියටම precisely කියන්නේ. හරි හරියටම precisely අපි කියමු semester 2 ගියාම දැන්ට one to many කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා ඔළුවේ දෙනවා ඇති. හරි? දැන් අපි ගාව තියෙන one to many potential දෙන්නේ කවුද? We have employee and we have student. Sorry, we have department. නේ? දැන් මේ දෙනෙක් one කවුද many කවුද? One employee can work for one department. Department can have many employees. So the employee is the many side. එහෙනම් foreign key එක දාන්නේ කොහෙද? foreign key එක දාන්නේ many side එකට. foreign key එක දාන්නේ many side එකට නේ. එහෙනම් many side එකට දාමු. many side එක මොකද employee. So I am going to the design view. And design view. I would say edit design view එකට ආවා. අපි දාන්න දැන් foreign key එක මොකද්ද? අපි කියමු department number කියලා. අර නමම දැම්මම ලේසි. පැටලෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. ඒ නමින්ම දාන්න ඕනේ. data type එකම දාමු. ඒක primary key එකට map කරන්න හදන්නේ. primary key එකේ නමම තමයි දාන්නේ. department ඔයාලට කැමති නමක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. අර නමම දැම්මම ලේසි. හොයා ගන්න. number. And here I will make it tiny integer because the primary key is also tiny integer. They are compatible field again. Right. So now I have added the field. Just because you add the field, your database doesn't know whether it is mapped to the primary key or whether it is a foreign key. Naming යාට foreign key දොහන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් යාට මේක map කරලා පෙන්නන්න ඕන. ඔව් මෙයා map වෙලා තියෙන්නේ අර primary key එකට කියලා. හරි. කොහොමද ඒක කරන්නේ? Right, I will close this. Method relationship කියලා එකක් නෑ ඔයාලට පේනවා. You have the tables, queries, forms, reports. But there's nothing called relationship. Relationship වලට යන්න ඕනේ මෙන්න මෙතන tools වලින් යන්න ඕනේ. Tools, relationships. දැන් column එක දැම්මට map කරේ නෑ තාම. තාම relationship එක හැදිලා නෑ. So go to the relationships. Add these two tables to this screen. Add select කරලා add කරන්න. එකපාරකට ready add කරන්න එපා හැබැයි. Right. Now close it. ඕන්නම් පොඩ්ඩක් මෙතන ඉඳ ගන්නවා. ගසීමෙන් කරන්න ඕනේ මේක. unlock කරා. Right. So this is my foreign key, department number, right? Which must be mapped to the primary key of the related table. Remember the definition of foreign key? A field in a table which is mapped to the primary key of the related table. Right? මෙහෙම relationship එක හදන්නේ base වල. මේක SQL වලින් තමයි හදන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන්. commercial database වල Microsoft MS SQL වගේ වයි Oracle වගේ වයි. හැබැයි මේක personal database එකක් හදනකොට එහෙම SQL වලින් හදන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ඔයාලට තියෙන්නේ මේ department number කියන එක drag කරන් ඇවිල්ලා මෙන්න මෙතන දාන්න. එතකොට එයා දන්නවා මේ primary key එකම තමයි මෙතන represent කරලා තියෙන්නේ map කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. හරි. හොඳට බලන්න ඉන්න මම primary key එක අරන් එනවා. click කරලා drag කරන් එන්නේ. අතාරින්න නැතුව mouse එක. හරි field එකට දාන්න ඕන department number. Now release. Now you can see that department can have many employees. Employee work for one department. මේ පැත්තට n වැටුණා මේ පැත්තට 1 වැටුණා. right n වැටුණා 1 වැටුණා. I කියන්නේ relationship එක හදනවා. හරි. Now we can save it and close it. අපි පොඩි data ටිකක් දාමු. data ටිකක් දැම්මනේ මේක වැඩේ පැහැදිලි වෙන්නේ. අපි ඉස්සර පොඩි department ටිකක් දාමු. double click කරාම open වෙනවා data view එකේ. Say department number 1, name HR, say location Colombo. ඒවගේ තව data දෙකක් විතර දාමු. to FIN කියලා දාමු finance, say candy. තව එකක් දාමු 3 admin, let's say Jaffna. Right now I have 3 records in the department table. I will say save. Yes. Now let's add some employees. දැන් valid department numbers උනක් තියෙනවා. ඒ තුනේ එකක් තමයි දාන්න ඕන department වලට. right. මම නිකන් බොරු නම් ටිකක් දානවා. හරි. නිමල් Fernando. Okay, so employee number must be, let's add something like 1. Okay. Number 1. Say name is Nimal. Salary, let's say 70,000. And the department number, let's say he works for department 2. දැන් ටට්ටක් ගාගෙන තව data 3-4ක් ගන්න 2 Kapila say 80,000 and 1 department, he's from department 1, assume. Third employee say Nimali, say 95,000, department they say 1. Say fourth employee, say Chamat, say Kevin, say it is 60,000, and department, let's say third one. Now we have few records, and of course the database know that this department number is mapped to the primary key of the employee. So therefore, now let's save it. Now if you try to save department number which is not a valid value in the department table, it will give you errors as well. Now I change to 4 and save it. You can see it says integrity violation. You can't do like that. Right? So those kind of things database can enforce if you have defined your foreign keys, primary keys properly. Okay, let's say okay. It's not allowed. I will just change it to 3 because there is no department called 4. Right. So that is how you create one-to-many relationships. Right? One-to-many. One-to-many. So next we will look at one-to-one. Over the one-to-one relationship one-to-one relationship A ගේ එක්කෙනෙක් එක්ක B ගේ එක්කෙනයි රිලේට් වෙන්නේ B ගේ එක්කෙනෙක් එක්ක A ගේ එක්කෙනයි. කොයි වෙලාවකවත් one-to-many වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි? එක්කෙනාට එක්කෙනා විතරයි යන්නේ. Right? So that is called one-to-one relationship. So two tables or relations, they are related one-to-one. One instance of A is related with one instance of B, and one instance of B is related with one instance of A. Right? Right. How to create one-to-one relationship? අපි ගන්න හැමතිස්සෙම relationship වලින් foreign keys දාලා හැබැයි සමහර ඒවායි foreign keys දාන්න විදි දෙකක් තියෙනවා one-to-one වල. හැබැයි මේකේ support කරලා තියෙන එක විදියයි. ඒ තමයි තව විදියක් තියෙනවා ඒකත් මතක තියාගන්න. අපි විදි දෙකම කතා කරනවා in details database subject එකේදී. So here I am going to give you one feature. අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා one-to-one relationship එකේ තියෙන entities දෙකක් හොයාගන්න ඕන. Right. So very good example is if you take this one as employee, his or her spouse, සහකාරය. මොකද අපි spouse ලගේ information තියාගන්නවා විශේෂයෙන්ම insurance claim කරද්දී medical insurance claim කරද්දී employees medical insurance scheme එකක් තියෙනවා නම් employee විතරක් නෙමෙයි employee spouse ට claim කරන්න පුළුවන් බොහෝ විට බොහෝ policies වල හරි මොකද යක් පවුලේ සමාජිකයෙක් ඒකෙන් අපි spouse ලගේ information තියාගන්නවා database වල හරි අපි පොඩි table එකක් හදමු spouse කියලා එහෙනම් හරි මෙතනම හදමු ටක් ගාලා දැන් හදන්න පුළුවන් අපිට table design view say spouse number spouse කියන්නේ husband and wife කියන එකට common කියන එක හරි මොකද female employees ලට ඉන්න පුළුවන් husband male employees ලට ඉන්න. ඒතකොට මට husband wife කියලා දෙකක් හදා දෙන්න ඕනේ නෑ. ඒතකොට spouse number I will go for tiny int and maybe again spouse name. Right, that's enough for me. Okay, save करो अभी क्या हमारे spouse table लेके हरी primary key का दाम उदेंगा आया primary key का अतिंग अदर दम मटा मत कुना निचलस में spouse number क्या primary key की लगी है මම එකද මේක මකලා දාලා මම මෙයාව primary key කරනවා හරි වැරදි එයා දාපු එක අයින් කරලා දාලා delete කරනවා යාව හරි මම මෙයාව primary key කරනවා හරි මට අමතක වුණා ඉස්සෙල්ලා primary key කරන්න primary key කරන්නේ නැතුව save වෙන්නේ නැහැ table එක right now we have a spouse number and name and there you have the employee number employee name salary etc දැන් අපි දන්නා මේ දෙන්න අතර තියෙන මොකද්ද one to one relationship එක. හරි lazy one to one relationship හදන්න. Microsoft Access වගේ ඒවා තව විදියකුත් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි base support කරලා තියෙන එක විදියයි. හරි ඒ තමයි අරයාගේ primary key එක ගෙනල්ලා one to one එකේ ඉන්න දෙන්නගේ primary key එක ගෙනල්ලා primary key එකට map කරන්න ඕන. හැබැයි primary key කොහොමද unique හන්දා ඒකට one to one වෙනවා නිකම්. හරි මම කියව එක තේරුම් නැත්තම් okay yes මම කියව තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තම් දැන් ගිහලා කරනකොට තේරෙයි යා go to tools relationships now I have the employee and the department still the spouse is not there for they are add කරේ පස්සේනේ එයා add කරන්න පුළුවන් මෙන්න මෙතනට ගිහිල්ලා add tables වලට යන්න spouse select කරලා add කරන්න එකපාරක් හැබැයි යා හරි අපි spouse මේ පැත්තෙන් තියාගමු මොකද අපිට relationship එකක් හදනකොට ඉර නැත්තම් කැපෙනවා දැන් වල හරි one to one එක හදන්නේ කොහොමද මෙයාගේ primary එක ගෙනල්ලා මෙයාට දාන්න නැත්නම් මෙයාගේ primary එක ගෙනල්ලා මෙයාට ඕන විදිහකට කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. සාමාන්‍ය ප්‍රධාන එකේ එක අරන් ගිහලා දාමුකෝ අපි. spouse number එකට employee number එක අතාරින්න. එයාට වෙන එක 1 to 1 කියලා අඳුරගත්තා. හරි. Primary when you have foreign key between two primary keys of table, that is definitely a 1 to 1 relationship. 1 to 1 හදන්න පුළුවන් එක විදියක් තමයි. තව විදියක් තියෙන ඒ විදිය අපි කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ මෙතන. හරි. Right, now we have one to many relationship and one to one relationship. මේකට අපි පොඩි data ටිකක් දාමු නේ. එතකොට තමයි හරියට තේරෙන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට. අපි තුන් spouse number එක දැන් අරගේ employee number එක වෙන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට employee 1 ගේ spouse ID එකත් spouse number 1. හරි? අපි තුන් employee 1 ට spouse කෙනෙක් නැහැ. එයා unmarried. employee 2 ගේ මම නිකන් කියන්න SP1 කියලා. හරි? නිකන් නම් දාන්න නැතුව. අපි තුන් spouse number 3 ඒ කියන්නේ employee 3 ගේ spouse අපි තුන් SP3 ඒක හරි මෙයාට කියමු SP2 කියලා. හරි employee 4 ට නැහැ කියලා හිතමු. හරි employee 3 4 ටත් ඉන්නවා කියලා හිතමු අපි spouse කෙනෙක්. අපි හිතමු මෙයා SP4. දැන් 1 to 1 එක හැදිලා. මොකද මේ 2 කියන්නේ employee 2 ගේ spouse, 3 කියන්නේ 3 ගේ spouse, 4 කියන්නේ 4 ගේ spouse. 1 ට spouse කෙනෙක් නැහැ මේකේ විදියට. හරි? That done. Now we have one to many relationship as well as one to one relationship. Okay, one to one relationship. So the next type of relationship is called many to many relationship. Right? Many to many. Right? Many to many. So as the name suggests, many to many relationship. මම මේ කියන කතාව 100% තේරුන්නේ නැහැ කියලා බය වෙන්න එපා. මේක semester එකක් පුරා කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ මේ පොඩි idea එකක් දීගෙන තමයි මම හදාගෙන යන්නේ access මේ Microsoft LibreOffice base වලින්. හරි? So what is many to many? So as the name suggests, මේ දෙන්න අතර තියෙන්නේ M to N කියලා අපි කියන්නේ. One instance of A is related to many instances of B, and one instance of B is related to many instances of A. Right? So this is very rarely found, but there are situations. Like many to many relationship. So then you must know how to build a many to many relationship in the database. Database එක කොහොමද many to many relationship හදන්නේ? හරි. ඉස්සරහට උදාහරණයක් කියන්න many to many එකට. Student and course. Student can attend many courses. Obviously, course can have many students. Right? So I think තව ඒවාද තියනවද? many to many. Assume that we have projects in our business organization. Say employee can work for many projects. එහෙම හිතමුකෝ පුළුවන් කියලා software industry එක නම් එහෙම කරනවා. හරි එයා අර project එකේ වැඩ කරනවා ඒ අතරතුර කලින් හිටපු project එකේ bug fixing කරනවා. Right? So therefore let's introduce a concept called, now already we have a concept called employee. So let's add a concept called project. So then employee can work for many projects at the same time. A project can have obviously many employees. So therefore this is definitely a man-to-man. That's my man-to-man relationship. හරි කොහොමද දැන් man-to-man relationship එක හදන්නේ? ටිකක් කතන්දරේ දිගයි. අනිත් ඒවා කෙලින්ම හැදුවානේ one to many, add the foreign key to the many side. One to one, make relationship between the primary keys. Now in many to many, we have to introduce another table. හරි අපි මොකද කරන්නේ මෙයාට තව table එකක් introduce කරනවා. ඒකට අපි කියන connecting table එක කියලා. Then you map it as two one to many relationship. ඔන්නෝකයි කරන්නේ. එතකොට මෙයා අයින් වෙනවා මේක තමයි මෙහෙම කරේ. මේක වෙනුවට තමයි මෙහෙම one to many දෙකක් හදන්න many side එක connecting table එක වෙන්න. ගොඩකට අපි table එක නම දෙන්නේ මේ දෙනගේ නම් එකතු කරලා. ඒතකොට ලේසි හොයාගන්න. තා employee project කියමු අපි. So here the foreign key must be here because many side is here. Again many side is here. And we are going to get two foreign keys and finally make your that combination of foreign keys as the primary key. Then you have created the man-to-man relationship. Okay. හරි අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මේ project කියන table එක දාලා කෙලිමු. මෙතන දාන්න. Say project number, I am going to make it primary key. Tiny integer and let's say name, break and project name one. Text, and I will make this my primary key. Okay, let's close it. Let's call it project. මම හයියෙන් කරනන්ත අහන්න තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තම් save and close now. I have to open it again now. Base. So I will say cancel. Yeah, base. Cancel කරලා යන්න බැරිද මට? open existing database. Employee management අපි අන්තිම වැඩ කරගෙන හිටපු එක. Finish. මගේ ඉතින් ඉස්සෙල්ලා වැරදිලා close වුණා හරි. Right. Now we have the four tables. Okay. The new one project is also there. Let's add some data. Say project number එකට මම කියනවා 1 මම කියන PR1 කියලා හරි 2 second project I will say PR2 let's say we have third project also PR3 and now I have set of projects I have set of employees now we have to model the fact that employees can work for many projects project can have many employees then it's a many-to-many relationship so therefore we have to create a connecting table hari connecting table එකක් හදන්න වෙනවා දැන් අයි many-to-many නේ many-to-many නම් මොකද කරන්න ඕන මෙහෙම connecting table එකක් හදලා many පැත්තට connecting එන විදියට one-to-many දෙකක් විදියට තමයි මේක develop කරන්න පුළුවන් හරි so let's create that connecting table then say create a table in design so there we are going to create the two foreign keys as the primary key. So what are the two foreign keys? From employee side we have the employee ID, employee number. So let's go for long, so short tiny integer. Then other side we have the project ID. And both together දෙකම select කරලා ඉවරලා හරි දෙකම එකට select කරලා right click කරලා කියන primary key කියලා දෙන්නටම key ලකුණ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා හරි මේක ටික meaningful වෙන්න අපි දාමු පොඩි තව field එකක් say hours work and let's make it also tiny int or you can say number decimal උතෙන් ඉඳ දිනන number කියලා දාමු නේ. පැය 4:00මාරයි කිව්වොත් number. Right, now we are done. But still we haven't created the two foreign keys. මෙතන foreign keys දෙකක් හදන්න ඕනේ නේද? employee number එක තමයි මෙතන primary key එකට map වුනේ. මෙතන තියෙන project ID එක තමයි project number එක තමයි මේ වුනේ කියලා. එහෙනම් relationship එක හදන්න. now close කරමු. Yes. let's say employee project. Right, employee project. Okay, close. දැන් අපි relationship view එකට යන්න ඕන. relationship දෙකක් හදන්න තියෙනවා one to many ඒවා. නේ. slide කරන් ඉන්න ඕන. department එක මේ පැත්තට ගත්තා. So this is my project table. This is my employee project. දැන් මොකද කරන්න ඕන? one to many දෙකක් විදිහට හදන්නයි හදන්නේ. many to many හදන්න බෑ නැතුව. හරි one to many දෙක හදන්න කොහොමද? මේ තියෙන එක foreign key එකක් employee number එකට connect වෙන්න ඕන. මේ තියෙන අනිත් foreign key එක මෙයාට connect වෙන්න ඕන. හරි? primary key එක දැන් කියලා මොකද කරන්න ඕන? foreign key උඩ අතාරින්න ඕන. primary key sorry foreign key එක අරන් ගිහලා primary key උඩ අතාරින්න ඕන. මේකේ මෙයා primary key එක වගේ foreign key එකක් වෙනවා. employee නම් උඩ අතාරින්න. එයා දාගත්ත මේක one to many කියලා දාගත්තේ. හරි one to many වෙන්න එපා. හරි අපි හදන්නේ one to many දෙකන්නේ. right. so now it is one to many. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද කරන්න ඕන? මෙයාව අරන් ගිහලා දාන්න ඕන මෙයාගේ උඩ. project ID කියලා දැම්මේ නේද? අපි ඒක වෙනස් කරමු project number කියලා. හරි. හරි දාපු ටික මම save කරලා යනවා. හරි. මට අමතකුණා ඒක කරන්න. project employee project එකේ අපි දාමු මෙයාට. අපි හැමතැනම number කියන කිව්වේ. project number. හරි. save. දැන් ගිල relationship එක හදමු මගේ. නමේ අවුලක් තියච්ච අන්ද ආය ආවනේ. right. so this one to one is there. now we want to create this one to one. මෙන්න මේ දෙන්න. right. one එක කෙනා ඇවිල්ලා මෙනි පැත්තට දාන්න ඕන. මම department number දාලා තියෙනවා. හරි මෙතන project number එක තියෙන්නේ. project number එක අරන් ඇවිල්ලා අන්න මගේ අතින් වැරද්දක් වුණා. මේ recursive relationship එක මගේ අතින් හත්නා. හරි ඒක අයින් කරලා දාන්න ඕන. undo කරන්න පුළුවන්. undo කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ. හරි මම මේවා select කරලා මකන්නම් නා. මගේ අතින් වැරදිලා මම delete කරලා. හරි. දැන් හරි එක හදනවා. right so this project number I am going to drag it and put it into here project number. now it has created another one to many relationship. පොඩි අවුලක් තියෙනවා මෙතන one to many එක one to one වුණානේ. අයියේ මෙතන composite primary කීයක් හැදෙන්නේ නැතුව ඇති. මම පොඩ්ඩක් delete කරලා එනවා. පොඩි අවුලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා කොහේ හරි. මෙයා හරි. හරි. පොඩ්ඩක් මේවා save කරලා යන්න බලන්න. බලන්න මෙතන මොකක් හරි අවුලක් නැද්ද කියලා employee project වල edit. ඕනේ. මේ දෙකම combine වෙලා නැහැ primary key එක විදියට. primary key එක වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? composite. මෙන්න මේ දෙන්න එකට එකතු කරලා දෙකම select කරන්න primary key කියලා. දැන් හරියා. right save yes. දැන් නම් ගිරමන් relationship එකට මේ පැත්ත one to many හරි. දැන් අරන් ඉල දාමු. employee number ගෙනල්ලා එතන තාම primary key කියලා පේන්නේ නැහැ හැබැයි නේ. හරි දැන් හරි දෙන්න combine primary key. now this is one to many, this is one to many. right now we are done. we have one to one relationship, spouse and employee, one to many relationship, employee and department, many to many relationship, employee and project, but we have to do it as a many to many, one to many relationship. හරි මේ many to many එක තමයි හදලා තියෙන්නේ මේ many to one to many දෙක හරහා. හරි වෙන ක්‍රමයක් නැහැ many to many හදන්න database. right now we are done with the three type of relationship. I will close this. data චුට්ටක් දාමුවා. project ටිකක් දාලා තියෙන්නේ නේ. අපි employee project එකට projects ඉනවා කීයද? 3ක් තියෙනවා. employees ලා ඉන්නවා 4ක්ද කොහෙද නේ? 1 2 3 4 හරි. අපි දැන් පොඩි project ටිකක් දාමු. employee projects. Assume that employee 1 has worked for project 2. අපි හිතමු පැය 10ක් වැඩ කරලා තියෙනවා. Right. Employee 1 has worked for project 3 also, say 12 hours. Say employee 2 has worked for project 1 5 hours. Employee 2 has worked for project 2, say 12 hours. Employee 3 has worked for project 1 12 hours. I think මෙන්න මේවත් තියෙනවා නේද? employee 2 කියන එක නා project දෙකක වැඩ කරනවා. හරි. හැබැයි project 1 කියන එකේ employees ලාත් ගොඩක් ඉන්නවා. So therefore this is meant to be relationship. Okay. Right. So we are done with the inserting some data also. Let's save it. Right. So that's it. So ඔන්න හොඳ අපි database එක relations සහ relationship හදන්නේ. හරි tables නැත්නම් relations සහ relationship හදන විදිය තමයි කිව්වේ. table එකක් හදද්දී ඔයාලට නමක් දෙන්න ඕන, fields දාන්න ඕන, fields වලට නම් සහ data type දෙන්න ඕන. primary key එකක් select කරන්න ඕන. It can be one field or many composite field. Then relationship, there are 3 types. I explain you separately how to create one-to-many relationship, how to create one-to-one relationship, and finally how to create one-to-many. That's it. ඔක තමයි කරන්නේ database කරනවා කියලා. හරි. හරි. අපි මේ කතා කරන්නේ මොන T එකේද? අපි මේ කතා කරන්නේ ඔක්කොම logical low conceptual T එකේ. right? concept එක. හැබැයි මේවත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න කැමති නැහැ end users ලා. end users ලාට ඕන forms, end users ලාට ඕන reports. හරි. ඒගොල්ලෝ කැමති නැහැ මෙහෙම වෙලා data enter කරගෙන ඉන්න. ඒගොල්ලන්ට පොඩි views form එකකුයි report කීපයක හදලා දෙමුවා. Right. So again you have 2 options, design view or wizard. design view එකේ හදන්න පොඩ්ඩක් experience වෙන්න ඕන. ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ design view එක එච්චර බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි wizard ගෙන් ටක් ගාලා form දෙක තුනක් හදමු. එයාගෙන මොන table එකකටද form එක හදන්න ඕන කියලා මම කියනවා employee හරි department table එකට. මොන fees දාන්න ඕන අපි හිතමු ඔක්කොම ඕන කියලා. හරි. next. no I don't have sub form. මොන layout එකකට දානවා මේ විදිහට හදන්නේ නැහැ form සාමාන්‍යයෙන්. අපි කියමු මේ layout එක හදමු. නැත්නම් මේක. අපි යමු මේකට. මේ layout එකට යනවා. next. ඔයාලට restrict කරන්න පුළුවන්, edit කරන්න දෙනවද, delete කරන්න දෙනවද කියලා අපි කියමු නෑ. ඕන දෙයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. ඊට style එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. right. I am happy with this style. okay. පළවෙනි අම්ප එක. and අපි කියමු department form එක කියලා. හරි. මේක table එක එකම නම තිබුණාට මේක form එකක් අන්ද ඒ නම තිබුණාට කමන්නේ නෑ. finish. හරි. ඒගොල්ලෝ end users ලා කැමති මේ වගේ එකකින් වැඩ කරන්නේ. ඒවට ඊළඟ report department එකට යන්න පුළුවන්, අලුත් department එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන් මෙහෙම. දාලා save කරන්න පුළුවන්. අතර B4. එතන save button එක තියෙනවා. දැන් මම table එකට ගිහලා බලුවොත් එමු ඉස්සර department තුනයි දාලා තියෙනවා. දැන් හතරවෙනි department එකක් තියෙනවා table එකට ගිහලා බලුවොත්. form එක වැඩ කරාම table වලට connect වෙලා තියෙනවා. අතර හතරවෙනි department එක මට location එක දාන්න අමතක වුණා ඉස්සෙල්ලා. right. So that is how you create a form. right. තවට form එකක් හදමු employee ට. forms wizard ගෙන් මම කියනවා අපි employee ට. next. waiting form එක. name එක, salary එක පොඩ්ඩක් එහාට මෙහාට overlap වෙලා තියෙනවා. design view එකට ගිහලා edit කරන්න පුළුවන්. So you can look at the next one, or you can create a new record as well. අලුත් record එකක් දාලා save කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. ඔන්න ඔයාලට අපි කියන මොනවාද? forms කියලා. forms අයිති මොන tier එකටද? tier 1, user tier, external tier. ඒගොල්ලෝ කැමති මේවත් එක්ක data enter කරන්න. Right. So now we created two forms. One for employee, one for department. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ අනිත් forms වලට generate කරලා බලන්න. right. ඊළඟට තියෙන අපිට reports කියලා concept එකක්. මේක අපි external view එකේ තියෙන ප්‍රධානම දේවල් දෙක මොකද? forms for data entering and reports which are needed by the managers etc. to run the day-to-day activities, planning and other things. Okay. right. අපි බලමු ඊළඟට මොකද්ද report එකක් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා. හරි report එකක්. So here you have something called reports. Usually if you can create a report using wizard, that is good enough. Okay, I will say use wizard to create report. Now it will ask which table දෙකක් connect කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එකක් විතරක් හදුවා. මට ඕනේ employees ලාගේ report එකක්. Okay, employees ලාගේ report එක. ඔයාලට කියන්න මොන fields ද ඕන? මම කියන ඔක්කොම fields වල report එක. හරි. report එකේ එන්න ඕන fields වල නම්. හරි. මම පොඩ්ඩක් space එහෙම දාලා පොඩ්ඩක් මේක හදන්න. හරි. report එකේ එන fields ටික යාර table එකේ නම් වලින්ම තමයි ගත්තේ. නමුත් table එකේ නම් වලට වඩා ලස්සනට මේක space කියලා හදුවා. හරි. sub grouping ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා ගන්න දැන්ට. sort කරන්න ඕන දන්නවා. ඔබ මම කියනවා යාව employee number එකට sort කරලා දෙන්න කියලා. හරි. secondary sort එකක් ඕනේ නැහැ. හරි. next. හරි මොන layout එකට දාන්න ඕන form එක. sorry report එක. මම යනවා හරි මම යනවා tabular හරි in blocks කියන layout එකට. හරි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ experiment කර කර බලන්න ඕනේ මේ මොනවද වෙන්නේ කියලා. හරි. next. report එකේ නමට මම employee කියලාම දෙනවා finish කරනවා. ඔක්කොම employees ලා ඉන්න ඕනේ හැබැයි employee ID එකට හරි. මෙතන යූටි භාගයක් තියෙනවා මෙතන මේ ආයි fields ටික වදිනවා heading ටික. ඒක design view එකට ගිහලා හදා ගන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. ඒක දැන්ට ඔයගොල්ලෝ worry වෙන්න එපා. නැත්නම් එකපාරක් මේක වදින්න ඕනේ ඊට පස්සේ වදින්න බෑ. හරි. මේක පොඩි භාගයක් තියෙනවා මේක. ඔන්න ඔය වගේ වට අපි කියනවා reports කියලා. ඉතින් අපිට පුළුවන් report එකක් හදද්දී ඔක්කොම employees ලා වෙනුවට මේ department එකේ ඉන්න employees ලා විතරක් salary එක 80000ට වැඩි employees ලා කියලා ඒ වගේ criterias දාන්න. හරි. right. So finally now you know table or relations and relationships how to create and how to create forms and reports. මම advanced දේවල් කරේ නෑ design view එකට ගිහලා කරන විදිය. නමුත් this is good enough for you. Right. Now we have one more subtopic in databases, that is queries. So queries are heavily used. ඔයාලට ඇත්තටම semester 2 එකේ වැඩිම අපි කතා කරන්නේ මේ SQL ලියන විදිය.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Now I'm connected back. Right. අපි semester 2 වල වැඩිම කරන්නේ මේ SQL ඉගෙන ගන්න එකම තමයි. මොකද SQL වලින් තමයි අපි තනිකර database එකත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්නේ. Right. So when it comes to SQL, you can use SQL to create table, create relationships, change your relationships etc. මෙතන ඒවා පාවිච්චි කරේ නැහැ. මෙතන tool එකකින් ටිකක් කරේ. tool එකට ගිහලා relationship ඇදුවා. හැබැයි SQL වලින් පුළුවන් මේ table හදන ඒවා ඔක්කොම ටික කරන්න. එහෙමද ඇත්තටම කරන්න. හරි. commercial database එක අපි කතා කරනවා semester 2 database කරද්දී. Right, how to use SQL to create, alter, drop tables. But here you are supposed to know how to use SQL to at least insert, update and delete data. හරි. update delete නැතත් පොඩ්ඩක් query එකක් ලියන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. select එකක් ලියලා search එකක් කරලා data ටිකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. හරි. මම ඉතා සරල SQL queries දෙකක් තුනක් explain කරනවා. ඔයාලට යන්න ඕන create query in SQL view කියලා. හරි. මම ඉතා පොඩි SQL එකක් ලියනවා. ඒ තමයි මේක ඉංග්‍රීසි වගේ ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කතා කරනවා වගේම තමයි. මොකද මේක 4GL language එකක් නේ SQL. හරි. select පේන්නේ නැහැ නේ. පේනවලුද? notepad එක ලියලා දාන්නම්. right. select all කියන්නේ star. මේ SQL එක ලියන්නේ structured query language එක. query එක. from employee. ඔන්න සාරලම select query එක ලිව්වේ. ඒතර ඔක්කොම fields ටිකක් දෙන්න ඕන, ඔක්කොම records ටිකක් දෙන්න ඕන employee table එකේ තියෙන. හරි? run කරලා බලමු. මේක කළා වාට පුළුවන් save කරලා තියන්න පස්සේ ගන්න. අපි කියමු query 1 කියලා. මේක run කරලා බලන්න පුළුවන් මොනවද data විදියට එන්නේ කියලා. කොහොමද බලන්නේ? run query. ඔන්න data ටික ආවා. table එකේ තියෙච්ච ඔක්කොම data ටික ආවා. okay right so තා පොඩ්ඩක් restrict කරමු දැන් query. select not all some fields. අපි හිතමු employee number name salary. fields තුනයි අපි ගත්තේ. from employee ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඔක්කොම fields ටික ගත්තා. මේ කොහොමද තුනයිද කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ නේද? අපි කියමු employee number එකත් ඕනේ නැහැ, name එකයි salary එකයි විතරයි ඕන කියලා. හරි. ඔන්න තව SQL එකක්. හරි. තව SQL එකක්. කලින් select all from employee. මේ චූටි SQL අහලා තියෙනවා පේපර් වල. select all පළවෙනි එක නේ. දෙවෙනි එක select name salary ඔක්කොම එපා, මට මේ fees ටික විතරක් දෙන්න. හරි. බලන්න මේ ටික විතරක් එනවාද කියලා. අලුතෙන් query එකක් හදමු. save query 2 කියලා save කරමු. run කරමු. දැක්කද? name එකයි salary එකයි විතරයි ආවේ. ලොකු ඒවා අහන්නේ නැහැ, නිකන් ඔයාලට මේ basic SQL කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා දන්නවද කියලා විතරයි බලන්නේ ආ. හරි අපි තව query එකක් හදමු. SQL view එකේ. හරි අපි අර කියමු. දැන් restrict කරනවා. මේ records ටික විතරක් එන්නේ කියලා. හරි. say select all from employee. මෙතන T එක දාලා දෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් තමයි table එකේ T එක දැම්මේ ආ. right go for the queries. තුන්වෙනි query එක තමයි මේ නෑ. දැන් හරි දැක්කද? දැන් මම query එක හැදුවානේ. column එකේ නම හැදුවා. දැන් මට ඕන edit කරන්න පුළුවන්. edit in SQL. and select all from employee where department number equal to. ඔන්න query. ඔය කියන්නේ salary එක මීට වැඩි අය. තව එකක් දෙන්න මේ වගේ. තව query එකක් මම ලියනවා. select all from employee where salary අපි හිතමු greater than 70,000. ඔක්කොම ලෙන එක නැහැ 70,000 වල අඩුව එන්නේ නැහැ දැන් ආ. save query 4 and let's run it. 70,000 80,000 95,000 අය ආවේ. අන්න 60,000 කෙනෙක් ආවා. මම 70 න දාලා තියෙන්නේ. 70,000 save run. ඇට 10 අය කාවේ කොහොමද? මම 7,000 ලියලා තියෙන 70,000 දැන් තමයි 70,000 නේ. right only those employees whose salary is greater than 70,000. so ඒ වගේ cuties මම SQL statement එක දානවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ WhatsApp group එකට. ඒ ටික copy කරලා තියාගන්න. this is another one. I will post it to your group also. Okay, චූටි වල ලියා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. Right. So now someone will ask, what is the purpose of creating these queries? ඇයි මේ queries ලියන්නේ කියලා. Queries ලියන්න හේතුව තමයි අපි reports එහෙම හදද්දී මෙච්චර වෙලා අපි connect කරේ table වලට. ඔයාලට ඕන නම් queries වලට connect කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. අපි ආයෙ report එකක් හදමු. හරි. කලින් මෙතන තියෙන table ටික විතරයි. දැන් මෙතන table වලට අමතරව queries උත් තියෙනවා. හරි. ඒතර query එකට අදාළ record ටික ඔයාලට report එකකට ගන්න පුළුවන් දැන්. මේක තමයි ප්‍රධාන වැඩේ. query කරලා data ගන්නවට අමතරව කරන අනිත් වැඩේ. හරි. කියනවා මේ query තියෙන අය තමයි මට report එක ගන්න ඕන. මෙතන ඉන්නේ කවුද? salary එක 70000ට වැඩි employees ලා නේද මේ query එකෙන් එන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ report එකක් ඕන නම් ඔන්න එයාව අපිට connect කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. මෙතන ඉන්නේ 70000ට වැඩි කට්ටිය විතරයි. හරි. Because I connected the report to the query rather than to the table. Table එකට connect කරන ඔක්කොම record එක data ටික එනවා නේ. So that is one advantage of querying. Of course, querying now used from your application software, your Java or C# to communicate with the database. ඔය මම select එක විතරයි වෙන්නේ. ඊට අමතරව insert කරන්න පුළුවන්, update කරන්න පුළුවන් column, delete කරන්න පුළුවන් record. හරි. So that is beyond our semester 1 syllabus. Okay. Right. So that's it about the base. First, we discussed the theory behind the database management systems. Then we moved on to the base and we created few tables, the 3 type of relationships, and also some queries, especially in the SQL view. Then we build some forms and reports as well. That is external view. Right. So that's it about your application packages. So the FOSS personal computing. I didn't do much on GIMP. GIMP is up to you, right? But I in detail covered all the other packages: Writer, Calc, Impress, and today Base. Right? GIMP, you have to take care of GIMP by going through some tutorials. Okay? Right. So next time when we are doing FOSS personal computing, now this subject is over. Now only programming we have to finish. Okay, all the other subjects are now done. Now next time when we are doing FOSS PC application, we will be doing pass-fails. Okay, මේක අපි ගොඩක් අර pass-fails දෙකක් විතර තමයි කරන්නේ. මොකද ඔක්කොම එක වගේ papers තියෙන්නේ. හරි. අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා 20යි 21 කළා 20යි 19 paper එක කරනවා. හරි. හරි. ඔබ pass-fails ටික කරලා ඉවරලා ඊළඟ session එකට එන්න ඕන. ඒ කියන්නේ FOSS PC application තියෙන session එකට එන්න. හරි. Right. So we stop at this point. Right. Thank you.